Hey guys, welcome. Thank you for coming. We are not ready to start yet. There's a few folks who have tickets who are on their way, so which is actually typical of Saturday evening outdoor shows. So we're going to give people a few minutes to get here. As I've been circulating around, I've gotten a few questions about the instrument I'm playing. So I thought I would just provide an explanation of that for a minute or two, and before we formally get started. So I appreciate all the questions that people have been getting to me. I'm just going to shut this off so it doesn't ring during the show. Probably a good thing. So one question I got, a great question from, who's this gentleman I talked about there? Charles had a good question. What's that sound you're hearing right now before we start to play anything? That drone sound, and that's called the tanpura. It's a physical instrument. We don't have one today, so we have an app that sampled it, but it's alive. This is a sample of a live instrument. And Charles asked me this great question, what's that for? And I would say the best analogy is it kind of serves the same function as chords do in jazz. And in fact, if you listen to Indian classical music, North Indian classical music, the closest analogy I can make for you is actually modal jazz. So if you picture jazz that's happening with one chord that doesn't change and you work melody over it, that's more or less what we do in Indian classical music with lots of improvisation. So that's the analogy to that. I'm going to get my instrument here. The other thing that drone does is it helps you check if you're in tune, so I'm going to do that. So this instrument is called the sarod. It is older, but on the scale of Indian classical music, it's relatively young. I think it kind of evolved a couple hundred years ago, maybe, from the rabab, which is an Afghan instrument from Afghanistan. And a bunch of rababiyas moved to North India, and there was a lot of interest on their part in getting this instrument into Indian classical music. So they made a bunch of changes. The biggest of which, it has steel strings, so it has a lot of sustain. The original rabab had gut strings, and that is, the sustain is really important for Indian classical music. So that was a change that they made. But it has a lot of the other features, such as a smooth fingerboard. So there are no frets on this instrument. So if you hear it here, you can slide. So you can slide pretty freely on it, which is important in a lot of music, including Indian classical music. The other thing that you heard up there is it has drone strings, strumming strings similar to the banjo, which Graham is playing. So there's a couple more on here in banjo, 5-string banjos, typically one strumming string. With this, we have 6, 3 that you mostly play. It sounds like this. And then there's some other tuned ones underneath. You can occasionally play a bit more like a chord like this. So you can get a couple different sounds out of that. And then you kind of combine these things. So if you have, you're playing along on the 4 playing strings, you can come up here and strum. So you can listen for that when we're playing today. The other thing that is special about this instrument, like the sitar and a lot of other classical instruments, there are sympathetic strings underneath, which are tuned to the notes you play, but you never actually hit them with the pick. They just resonate, and it kind of makes the instrument fuller. It's kind of like a natural reverb. The other instrument that we have tonight that is folks may not all be as familiar with is the bansuri, which Allison's playing. You can hear some of that sound. Thank you. and that's a bamboo flute. That's also an Indian classical instrument. So you'll get to hear both of those, and then also, and I'll do introductions now. So that was Alison Lynch Bentley on bansuri. Hi, Alison. It's Graham Smith White on banjo, and also on slide guitar later on. Alex Martin on guitar. I think everybody here knows Alex. And the incomparable Jason Walker on percussion, drums of various kinds. So you'll see that today. Ready? All right, I think we're all set to go. So thank you guys. And turn it over to our friends from Joe's. Absolutely, my friend.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Hello, everybody at home. My name is Jen. I am the theater production manager here at Joe's. I am happy to welcome everyone here. We are so excited for this event, this show. A couple of artists have been here before, and they're here with us again. But I wanted, just as a reminder to everyone, next Saturday will be one of the Saturdays that we unfortunately do not have a show. We have rented it out to Step Africa, which is an amazing step group. They're actually going to be doing their one-day summer camp here, and they're going to do a performance for their parents, so it's going to be great. And I think I've said all that I can say, because you're not here to see me, you're here to see them. So without further ado, Kundalika.
Thank you. And thank you, Jen. Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you, David. Thank you, Joe's. Everyone up here lives within a couple miles of here, so the support for local musicians is really appreciated. I want to tell you a little bit about what you're hearing tonight, because the format may be a little unusual, because we kind of made it up. So the pieces that we have are going to be about 20 to 25 minutes long. They're based on my compositions, and I'll tell you the story behind each piece. But a large chunk of what you hear, maybe 80% or 90%, is improvised. 80 or 90% is improvised. So we get a lot of energy from the audience and get the energy back. And I wanted to tell you guys about something. When you hear classical music, we might think of going to the orchestra and, sitting and listening to Beethoven or Bach and not applauding before the end. This is not that. This listening culture of North Indian classical music is much more like going to see a jazz show where you will applaud solos in between. Or like going to see gospel music, right? There's a lot more audience participation. And it really matters to us because improvisation is feeding off the energy in the room, right? In the community among all of us. So it's really, helpful and important when people react to the music, and we can feel it, but also hearing it. So I wanted to teach you one thing from North Indian classical music that's fun. So when somebody does something really awesome on stage, which I'm sure will happen today, what we usually say is "va." Everybody try that with me. Va.
Va.
Va. And if you see something really awesome, that va is like wow. If you see something really awesome, you can say "areva." Areva. Okay, that's like oh wow. So feel free to participate. Thank you very much. I'll talk more about how we put the music together later on in the show. But I'd like to get us into our first piece. This particular piece is called Banjo in Vrindavan, and a subject of composition for Indian classical composers is often, one of the topics is Lord Krishna, and not so much in religious songs, but more of him as a human figure. There's a lot of folk stories, folk dances around Krishna and his different adventures. So this particular song that I wrote is inspired by classical raga, which I'll talk more about later in the show. But it's an afternoon melody, and the image that I had in my mind is Krishna running around the garden, smiling, laughing, making people happy, playing the bansuri, flirting with the women, just having a good time. So it's a good summer piece to open up with. Banjo in Vrindavan. Thank you. All right. Arre, wow. All my friends here. Wow. Love it. So I want to say a little bit while we're switching instruments here about this format of music. There are tons of different ways to do cross-cultural conversations between different traditions of music. And I think each of us kind of finds his or her own comfort level, what makes sense to you. So it took me a long time to kind of come up with this format that you're seeing here today. And what defines this format is a term I used earlier called a raga. This is not traditional classical raga music. It's inspired by that, but there are a couple things from that traditional music that we incorporate. The raga, above all, defines a mood. So it's a mood or a feeling, and it's a way of producing that in the performers and the audience, sort of feeling something. And there are hundreds of these, and some are simple, some are complicated feelings. There's a lot that goes on there. What we have kept with this group is the idea that there is a common scale for each song. So these are based on traditional scales. And then characteristic phrases or licks that go along with it. So that's sort of where for me, the baseline of my conversation was among different traditions. And Alice and I are both approaching this from the Indian classical perspective. Graham and Alex, they have other traditions as well that they've studied with bluegrass and jazz and different things. But they've, for these pieces, we're all kind of trying to follow that basis. And that's sort of what we could do a 20, 25-minute piece. What makes it hang together is that there is sort of a melodic idea underlying it. And you'll see, I think the other thing that I've worked in, a lot of what another element that I've worked in that sort of makes sense for me. I don't know if it makes sense for everybody, but chords and chord changes are not common in Indian classical music. So that's just something that makes sense to me. So in the composed parts, I've done that. But even when you'll hear Alex and Graham playing chords, they still stay within the scale of the underlying raga. This next piece is called India Blue, and it's dedicated to my dad. It's based on or inspired by one of his favorite ragas, Raga Jog, which is really interesting because it's kind of a blue raga. It's used to express pathos and sadness and catharsis from that, right? Which is, I think, why we all like sad songs, right? It's for the catharsis. And what's interesting about it, melodically, is that you may hear this as we're playing. There's a lot of similarity to the blues pentatonic minor scale. So if you've listened to blues music, there might be there's a little bit of a twist, is slightly different, but you may recognize some of that. And in particular, the way Graham and Alex approach some of this stuff, you can clearly hear that conversation between the true traditions. My mom and dad grew up in India in the 30s, very poor and had a lot of hard times. And India in the 30s and the 40s, pre-independence and post-independence, there were some hard times there too. So this is, I guess, kind of a global blues, India Blue. one of the downsides of 25 strings is when the weather changes and it gets cooler, both this and the banjo, switch out of banjo, but this and the banjo always got a tune, so we got to retune. एक दोन एक दोन तीन चार. Thank you. Arriba. All right. Check that tuning. Okay, this next song is called Blue Balloon. Tell you the story behind this piece a little bit. It's dedicated to my mom, and it comes from a story that she told me when I was younger. And at the time, I didn't understand the importance of the story, but as I've gotten older, I've thought about it more and more. I was younger than my son's age. I was probably 6 or 7. We'd gone to a Diwali function somewhere, and all the kids had gotten little goodie bags with a toy in it. And I honestly cannot remember what the toy was at this point that I had gotten. But I discovered when we were on the car ride home that I'd left it there, and I lost it. It was my new favorite toy, and I was distraught. And so driving in the car, you know, my mom's wonderful, and she was, you know, very compassionate towards me. And then she said, well, let me tell you a story. And she told me about when she was younger. Again, this is in the, you know, probably late 30s, early 40s. And they were very poor, like no shoes on your feet poor. And she used to go by a store every day on her way to school, and she would see in the window a blue balloon, which is what this piece is titled. And she really wanted that blue balloon. She thought this was the most wonderful thing to have. And she cajoled her grandmother and finally prevailed upon her to give her a couple of annas, which I believe is fractions of a cent, but she was able to buy this balloon. And she took it to school, very excited to show her friends. And she put it away in class inside a book. And sure enough, when she came back later, another kid had taken it, and she lost her toy. So fast forward now to where she's telling me this story. And, you know, she told me the story and said, you know what? You feel sad now, but you feel better. And she didn't use the word empathy, but that's what I learned that day. And I think about how when I was sad, she told me about a time how she was sad and she got better. And so, you know, really, that story sticks with me. So this experience is kind of about a child's experience of finding their blue balloon, or whatever your blue balloon might be, and losing it, and just being happy again. So this piece is called Blue Balloon. एक, दो, तीन, चार, पाँच. 4, 5. एक, 2, 3, 4. दोन, एक दोन तीन चार. Thank you. All right, we are on to our last piece. Since this is our last piece, I'm just going to say a few things ahead of it. First of all, again, huge round of applause for Allison Lintz Bentley on bansuri, Graham Smith White on banjo and guitar, Alex Martin on guitar, and Jason Walker on percussion. Thank you, guys. This music is, like I said, something of my invention, this particular format. There are precedents. Some of you may know the band Shakti. That was a big inspiration. But there are things that we're doing here where there really was no blueprint. And I started putting these pieces together, I think, in March or April. For the first time. And these four people and our friend Rishi Das also, hey Rishi, the five of these guys were a huge help with figuring this out because there really is no blueprint. In the big picture sense, that I had a vision, but a lot of the practical stuff, for example, the notes that we play on the Indian instruments are slightly different than the notes on the guitar and banjo. How do you work with those differences? The notation is different, Indian musical notation and Western notation, and we spend a ton of time. Alex probably got daily calls from me at one point, trying to figure out a notation that would work for all of us. And these sound like small things, but they're pretty big. It's hard to do the conversation across cultures. So I just want to thank the five of you guys for really helping me figure this out. I've been thinking about this for probably 10 years of figuring out how I wanted to do this cross-cultural conversation, and this version works, so thank you guys. And also, can we get a huge round of applause for Joe's, and all the staff here, especially my friend Gustavo, who worked with so many times over the years. Thank you, Gustavo, and everybody else on the team. Thank you, guys. Very much appreciate it. And Jen, who introduced us. Thank you, everybody. Great support for community music here, so we appreciate it. The last piece I want to do, tell you a little bit about it. It's called Rich Robeson, and it's named after my late friend, Rich Robeson. Rich was my musical soulmate, still is. He passed away in October of cancer. Before, he could have lived a lot longer. He was in great shape. He was definitely younger than 70. Rich, the first person, I started my musical career as tabla player about 25 years ago, and the first person who ever had me play tabla with jazz was Rich. He's a jazz guitarist, among many other things. He was also just a tremendous music educator, had a lot of students, and friend. He had a lot of advice that sounds small, but I see the musicians in the audience, you really appreciate this. Had a lot of knowledge about ergonomics and pain. So if you had I get a shoulder plane from this, and some of the, Alex, you're nodding. I mean, some of the most valuable advice you can get from a mentor or friend as a musician is how to work with your instrument when you've got chronic pain that's preventing you from it. This very cushion that I'm wearing, here on my leg, it's a guitar cushion. So road players don't sit like this. We sit cross-legged, to play classical stuff. He helped me figure that out. So my shoulder was being uncomfortable. So that's a little bit about Rich. In terms of writing this piece, it was and if any of you are writers, it is a very interesting lesson in writing. My learning from this piece is, do not try to write a piece about somebody. It's very difficult to sum up a human life in one piece, and you'll have many crumpled up papers and false starts and feeling that you can't write at all. So the thing I thought about when I was trying to write this was, when I was trying to write a piece about Rich, it didn't work. But then I thought, he's come up to DC to play with me before, and we had plans for him to do that again after the pandemic. It didn't happen. But I thought to myself, if he was around, he would be on the stage with us tonight. In some ways, he is. And I thought, what's a piece Rich would like to play? And then it just suddenly popped out of my head, this whole thing. Rich really loved for any of you who follow jazz, the Phrygian mode. And there's a Indian raga, which this is inspired on. It's not quite the Phrygian mode, but it's pretty close, called Raga Bhairavi. And I know Rich would have liked this piece. So, buddy, thank you, my friend. I miss you. Look down on this and enjoy it. And I hope everybody enjoys our last piece, Rich Robeson. Thank you very much for coming. Again, thank you, Joes. Thank you, everybody. Arewa to all these guys. Thank you so much. Wonderful. If you want to keep up with future shows, you can look at, go to Kundalika, KUNDALIKA.net. Also, Facebook page, and you can keep up with there. If anybody has any questions about this music, I'll stick around for a few minutes now if people have any more questions that we weren't able to answer before. Thank you for coming. Good night.